Welcome to Science with Soul. I'm Dr. Lottie Valentine and the host of this podcast. I'm a physician, evidential psychic medium, international keynote speaker, and author of Med School After Menopause, The Journey of My Soul, an inspirational story about transformation, healing, and spirituality, available online at Amazon as well as other online platforms worldwide. The inspiration for this podcast came from my own life experiences. As I have journeyed through life, it has taught me that we're part of a greater divine web of interconnectedness. I have walked the path of illness, healing, and transformation. After two near death experiences, I became clairvoyant, clairaudient, and clairsentient, and was guided to attend medical school at the age of 54. We will be meeting with many different types of doctors, healers, as well as spiritual leaders, educators, and other inspiring souls in this podcast. It is my hope that you will gain information and create a path to healing your own life, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and bridge the gap between science and soul. If you are a person who understands the interconnectedness of mind, body, and soul, and would like to take one of my courses or work with me to create a path of healing your own life, please visit divinespiritualessence.com or drlottie.com. Welcome to Dr. Lottie's Science with Soul. Today, I'm excited to introduce Karen Curry Parker. Karen Curry Parker is a best-selling author of 17 books, the world's top-selling human design author, superstar coach to Hollywood writers, billionaires, and CEOs of major Fortune 500 corporations, TEDx speaker, and award-winning podcaster. Karen is the founder and creator of two professional trainings, the Quantum Human Design for Everyone training system and the Quantum Alignment system. And she's the founder of the Quantum Human Design membership community. She has over 25 years of experience as one of the world's first trained life coaches, 23 years as an energy psychology practitioner, and 22 years as a human design teacher and author. Karen has a deep love for helping people activate their highest potential, which in part is why she created Quantum Human Design. Her core mission is to help people live the life they were designed to live by discovering who they are, what they're here to do, and how to align with their creative self-expression and activate their authentic life path. So welcome, Karen. I am delighted to have you as a guest today.
Thank you. Thank you. I start to panic when you start to do the math. It's like, I don't know how it ended up being 25, 22. It's like, wait, I'm still 18. What happened?
Isn't that the truth?
Yes, totally.
When people start recounting what you have done in your life, how could I have done all of those things? So tell me, what is the quantum human design?
Well, that's it's a long answer. So I'm gonna do my best to keep it as succinct as possible. So some of you may have heard of a system called human design, which is a relatively new system of personality assessment. It was created in 1987 by a man named Ra Uru Hu. That system is a synthesis of Eastern and Western astrology, the Chinese I Ching, the Hindu chakra system, Judaic Kabbalah, and a little bit of quantum physics. What it really is this collection, if you will, this synthesized system that is a collection of ancient and modern archetypes. The way the system was originally taught, traditional human design, and traditional human design as it was taught has a very, very powerful function and a very beautiful function. You know, the language in traditional human design is really designed to wake people up to who they're not. So most of us, as we go through our life, we have a tendency to live from our conditioning. And you know, as a medical doctor, you know this, that even our gene expression to a certain degree is influenced by our lived experiences and even the ancestral memories of the lived experiences of the people we are genetically related to. So when we are following our conditioning from our ancestral lineage and from our lived experience, we have a tendency to oftentimes be conditioned to live as someone who we are not, right? We're told, here's the formula for success. Follow these few steps and boom, voila, magically you'll be abundant and happy and have a house and a soulmate and big diamonds and all that stuff, right? And what we see is, for most of us, is if we follow that formula, we might achieve a certain amount of success, but we certainly don't tap into the full flow of the potential well-being for our life. So the traditional human design system has language that's designed to kind of wake you up from your hypnosis or wake you up from that sleep state or that conditioned state where you've bought into the story that it's not okay for you to be who you are and how you are. I studied with the founder of the system and have been teaching human design, as you said, for 22 years. My original training, though, is as a nurse. I'm a nurse by training and a life coach. I was one of the very first life coaches trained by Thomas Leonard ever. Thomas Leonard considered to be the father of life coaching. And as a nurse and a coach, you know, I could apply the system, the traditional system, in the way in which I was taught, but it was very limiting in that it did a good job of saying, this is who you're not, but it really didn't give us the vocabulary to help us understand, well, if I'm not this, what am I instead? And what I kind of saw over the years, especially in the last 10 years, there was a limit with the words we were using. And that limit was really making it difficult for me to apply human design as a coaching tool, because coaching is about finding what does work and really focusing on how do we grow what is working? How do we expand into a narrative that better suits us, that's bigger than who we are right now, and that has the power and the compulsion to call us forward, even when we don't know how to get there yet. So what I did over the last few years is I've really rewritten all of this language. And I rewrote this language in a very deliberate way. It was actually, I took a lot of this language with me and explored, how does this language impact the body? How does this language impact the physiological responses to it, so that we were creating language that really augmented a state of coherence, a heart coherence. So this language is very deliberately and consciously used as a tool to really get people into a state of heart coherence, an energy state that allows your mind and your body to really flow in harmony together, so that you're not panicked, you're not anxious, you're not wondering like, well, that is sort of me, but not really. I don't know how. It allows you to actually settle with the vocabulary into the body so that you can become more aligned and consequently more creative with this new language. So that, in a nutshell, is what quantum human design is. It's sort of what happens after you wake up to who you're not. It's a new way of describing, well, if I'm not that, who am I instead? So.
Wow. So how do people learn about where they fit into this model?
So it's kind of simple. This is the part I like about it. It's actually astrologically based, as we said. So in order for you to explore your human design and consequently your quantum human design, you need to know your birthday, birth time, and birthplace. And just like with traditional astrology, you plug it into a software program. That software program spits out a chart. It looks like a map. If you've ever, my husband's an architect, so if you've ever remodeled your kitchen or rewired your house in some way, it looks like an electrical diagram with a human being in the middle of it. That diagram, that map, that chart really shows you how you process energy in the world. So it shows you what you're here to give or put out into the world. It shows you what you're here to receive energetically. So when you're in relationship with others, it shows you a lot of your energy dynamics in your partnerships or in your relationships. It shows you what's your best strategy for working. It gives you a lot of detail about how do you live in integrity with yourself energetically, so that you don't burn out, so that you don't spend a lot of energy trying to be someone you're not. It shows you your strengths and really your learning style. So it gives you a map, in a way, of how you process or how you experience the material world, which is a little bit different, I think, and actually quite complementary to traditional astrology. I think traditional astrology does tell us a lot about archetypes, for sure. I mean, we saw Carl Jung used astrology in his therapy processes. But it really can oftentimes be used more as a predictive tool. You sort of look at the archetypical themes that are coming at you based on the celestial weather of your unique chart or whatever's happening in the sky at the moment. And certainly there's an element of that in human design. It's almost like astrology is the who. It tells you a lot again about who you are. Human design is really the how you are. And I think those two used together can actually be quite beautiful. So your human design tells you not only how you process energy, but it really gives you key and I think really vital insights into, and I think this is really important things to understand, how do you make decisions? What goes into your unique way of interfacing with the world, and how do you choose consciously where do you go next? What's the next right step for you? So
yeah, that's what's going to be my next question. If somebody, let's say even an 18-year-old trying to figure out what should I study in college, I don't know what I should focus on, or somebody who's in their 40s and just feel burnt out and I'm tired of this job, but I don't know what next step to take. I don't even know what I'm good at or what to study or what direction to take. Would getting a report or a reading for these people be helpful?
totally, in different ways, because I mean, as I said, what it's really going to give you is a strategy for how to choose what's next. I love that you chose, a 20-year-old college student and a 40-year-old, because obviously what drives us to make choices at those ages are quite different. But I actually, in my fantasy life, everybody knows their design from the time that they're little. I have 8 children. My littlest is 12, and so we're still doing a lot of active learning around her chart, because she has a very unusual chart that involves needing consistent cycles of rest and renewal, and teaching her at this age how to really honor those inner needs for rest is huge. And watching her really be aware of how her energy works and giving her that inner awareness of, okay, it's too much now, I need a break, is huge. So, a 20-year-old is really, I just have to say this because this is important for me to say as a mom. It's so unfair that we have these expectations for young people, 20-year-olds, that they should have their whole path figured out. You know this, you went through this yourself, right?
Yes.
It's not fair. We're not, if I look at human design, nobody's supposed to know what they're here to do till they're at least 30, maybe 40. So I think the key to understanding that is there's no magic formula to, like, I'm 20, I know how to make decisions, I'm going to make the right decisions, and my whole life, because of these core decisions I made here, is just going to poof, unfold magically. Let's stop doing that. That's not fair. And of course, burnout is a really big thing that I talk about a lot. I would say 98% of my clients come to talk to me because they're burned out. And that's true. As you said, I work with a lot of Hollywood writers, TV writers, and it's, of course, part of it is just the crushing and horrific way that we create TV is terrible. And it's a formula for many people energetically that is just a guaranteed cycle of burnout after a good show. And, knowing how to reconnect with your own inner source of vitality in a way that allows you to stay sustainable energetically is written into the human design chart. And as I said, even with my 12-year-old daughter, just knowing how your energy flows, that many of us are sort of by nature boom and bust cycle people when it comes to energies, and knowing how to navigate through those. So for example, again, I'll go back to my daughter, who in human design, there are 5 energy types. She's an energy type that's called a projector. Projectors are here to manage and guide and direct others. And they're not here to work in the traditional way that we think of as working. And so consequently, they very often, if you're a projector type, they very often struggle with boom and bust cycles in energy. If I have a 20-year-old and I'm doing a reading for a 20-year-old, I'm probably going to teach them how to make decisions for sure. But what I'm really going to focus on is, what do you need to do financially to start now creating a fund for yourself, so that when you hit a bust cycle in your energy and you really need to hit pause, you have the financial ability to be able to say, okay, I'm going to take a couple of months off, and it's not going to tank you financially and then put you in a place where you're making desperate choices because of finances, instead of being able to pull back and say, okay, this is an integration cycle for me. I need to take a pause. I need to rest. I need to stop work. I need to really nurture myself right now so that I'm ready for the next opportunity when it shows up. So,
Yeah, that's really interesting. So what are the five energy types in a chart?
so the five energy types are, I'll go through them and I'll talk about the percentages and I'll give you a little bit of detail about each one. So the first energy type is called the manifester. In quantum human design, we call them the initiators. The purpose of the manifester is to live in alignment with their internal nonverbal creative flow. So manifestors or initiators are about 8% of the population. They have an internal creative flow that isn't built on language. So they literally will feel or sense when the timing is right to take action on something, and they'll just get into the flow of the doingness of whatever it is. And that's actually their job, because it's in living in alignment with that inner creative flow that they hold an energy frequency of authenticity that actually inspires and initiates the rest of us. We see people who have manifestor energy doing their own thing, basically, and we're inspired by it and we aspire towards it. The challenge for the initiator types are there's a couple of them. The first challenge is that as an initiator, they, much like the projectors that I was just talking about, they have boom and bust cycles as well. And so they don't have the sustainable energy for working in the traditional way that we think of as working. So initiator types need to structure their work life as if there's boom and bust cycles. So same thing, have a slush fund for your rest cycles. And they're not really designed to do the little jobs in life. They're designed to delegate. They're supposed to give people the little things and do the big things. The other challenge for the initiator or the manifestor type is that when they have this internal nonverbal creative flow and they get the call to go act on it, oftentimes the people in their life, their friends, their family, the people around them they're working with, they don't understand what's happening. All of a sudden, this person starts to take off and go do something, and it's confusing to other people. And oftentimes other people want to stop them and say, hey, what are you doing? That's a natural instinct when you see somebody just go off and do something, or somebody, you wake up one morning and your partner has packed their suitcase to go on a trip because they got an inner call to go somewhere, right? And they forgot to tell you. That happens. So the challenge for the initiator types is to learn how to inform, to tell the people who are going to be impacted by what's happening that this is what's happening, so that everybody can be ready, so that instead of like standing around in fear or saying, can I help you, or what is happening, they can take a step back and go, okay, you go, honey, go do your thing. If they fail to inform, what happens a lot of times is they will trigger anger, and they'll either trigger anger in others, or they'll feel angry if other people in some way impede their flow. And this can be something as simple as, you know, if you're an initiator type and you're in the kitchen and all of a sudden you want to go get something out of the bedroom, and you go through the doorway in the kitchen and your family members are standing there, your husband is standing there, he's like, I want to give you a hug, honey. You're like, don't hug me because I'm in my flow, right? So it's really about learning to say, I'm just going to the bedroom, I'll be right back. Learning how to train yourself to drop above that nonverbal aligned creative flow and inform as to what you're doing. It's not natural for the initiator types, but it actually ultimately saves them a lot of time. It's also important to understand, if you're an initiator type, that if you're feeling a lot of anger all the time, it might mean that you're in an environment with people who really don't support your creative expression. And that's something just to be mindful of. There are two other types that are similar to each other. They're called, in traditional human design, the generator types. We call them the pure generator or the manifesting generator. They comprise together about 70% of the population. I like to call the pure generators the alchemists, and the manifesting generators the time benders. This is the type 70% of the world. These are the types that are actually here to work. They are longing for work that is meaningful, that feels right and aligned. And that's, by the way, that when I say work, it's not necessarily a job. For some of them, it might be that they have a passion around something else that maybe isn't their source of income, but they have a job and they have the ability to hold down a job and keep a job and sustain a job in order to create the funds to go do their passion project. The work of the generator types, ultimately, or the goal of the generator types, is to become masterful. But that mastery is not necessarily about what they do, even though there's a lot of doing associated with the generator types. It's really more about becoming self-masterful. The generators are here to, through practice and experience and repetition, to learn about themselves and to stretch the boundaries of the possibilities of the human story. And so generators have a lot of learning about how they learn. The typical generator learns like this, and this is true of both of these kinds of generators. They have an initial surge in mastery. So they learn something, and right in the beginning, they get good at it. They learn something new. So if you're a generator type and you take tennis lessons, you go to lessons, and those first few weeks or even months, you get a surge in mastery. You're hitting the ball, you're doing a volley, you learn how to serve. I don't play tennis, so I'm making this stuff up. But so eventually what happens for all the generator types is they hit a plateau. Doesn't matter how much you practice, doesn't matter how many lessons you take, you get kind of stuck, right? The natural inclination for the generator types when they get stuck is to A, feel frustrated, right? You keep trying and trying and it's not working. And B, because you're frustrated, you quit. And then the next time you go do something, you go through that same process of learn, initial surge of mastery, hit a plateau, quit. And so what that does is it leaves a lot of generators in the world kind of getting good at starting something and not so great at figuring out what's next. So we don't really become self-masterful over the process of learning. The challenge for the generator types is when you sit on that plateau and you feel that frustration, which really isn't frustration. I think it's a bad word for it. It's really momentum building and recognizing that that momentum is building because you're about to have another breakthrough and a new surge in mastery. And if it is indeed your job at that time to quit, then you have to wait for something else to show up in your world, something for you to respond to tell you, yeah, you can quit this. Or you wait for something to show up in your outer world, something for you to respond to that says, yeah, go ahead, go up to the next level. If we keep quitting as generator types, we don't ever get to go up to the next level and then the next level and then the next level. And we don't get to be masterful over anything. We just have a sort of a string of kind of meh choices that we've made that don't really bear fruit or grow into something bigger and juicier and more mature. Generators are in this constant dance, if you will, that I like to call it the cosmic cha-cha-cha with material world. If you are a generator type, you're designed to literally take your cues and clues from the outer world. You're supposed to see what shows up in response to your intentions, your prayers, your questions, or just shows up, and then follow the things that feel good and right, which I do not know why in all the years that I've coached people, other than coaching people through burnout, the biggest thing I coach people through is it's okay for you to do what feels good. It's all right. It's allowed. You don't have to suffer to grow. It's okay. Just go do that thing that feels good and right. That's the nature of the generator process. You're designed to follow what feels good and right. So that's, as I said, that's 70% of the world. The pure generator does that pretty easily. Follow, stair-step learning curve, hit a plateau, wait, either quit or keep going, stair-step learning curve, hit a plateau, wait. The other type of generator, which is about 35% of the population, the manifesting generators or time benders, as we call them in quantum human design, they go a little bit faster. They tend to leap over some of the steps, which means sometimes they actually have to go back and repeat some of the steps they've skipped, no matter how hard they try to pay attention to all the details. Sometimes the manifesting generators feel like the manifestor or the initiator type. So if you are a manifesting generator and you really related to that internal nonverbal creative flow, you have part of that. And that creates an interesting dilemma because you feel like you could go get things started. You feel like you could just go follow your own flow, but you also still have to be in that cosmic dance with the outer reality. So if you get an idea and you're a manifesting generator and you just go out and make it happen, which you can, you still aren't going to get the results that you would have gotten if you'd waited for the cues and the clues from your outer reality to let you know that that is actually indeed the idea you are supposed to be following. So I always tell manifesting generators, listen to the generator information, listen to the manifestor information. You're always going to be a generator first, but you might also relate to the anger as well as the frustration if you're not living true to who you are. So the fourth type is called the projector, or I like to call them the orchestrators. Projectors are here to manage and guide and direct others. So as a projector type or an orchestrator type, what your greatest strength is, you understand and sense intuitively people's potential. And in addition to understanding and sensing intuitively their potential, you know exactly what they need to do to maximize that potential. I like to call projectors, human sheepdogs. It's like they are here to herd humans. Okay. They are, their job in life is to manage the rest of us. As I just said earlier, my youngest daughter, who is 12, is a projector. When she was little, I mean, this is just sort of an example of how intuitive and natural and innate this is in projector children and projector adults. When she was little, I used to have to keep the back door windows of the car locked so she couldn't roll them down, because we'd be driving through the street and she'd be rolling down her window, yelling corrections at people like, "Hey, you, why are you smoking? Don't you know smoking's bad for you?" Or, "Hey, you're not wearing your helmet. You need to wear a helmet when you ride your bike. That's not okay." So I always thought at one point, it was like, somebody is going to like totally get after her if I don't keep her quiet. And that's actually an interesting thing to be mindful of, because projectors, orchestrators, are not here to manage and guide everyone. They have a specific group of people who are waiting for them to show up and manage and guide them. And the way in which those people find their orchestrator, their projector, is they have to invite or recognize that projector into their group. And so the projector has to wait for recognition and invitation, which can be really oftentimes sometimes discouraging, because if you think, "Oh my gosh, I have to wait for somebody to recognize me," and you've been wasting your energy your whole life trying to manage people who aren't ready for the brilliance that you have to share, it can be a little bit confusing. Like, I'm supposed to just sit here and wait for people to show up and ask me. But the reality of it is, if you do two things, and this is essential for projectors, two things, if you handle these two things, you will expedite and influence the quantity and the quality of the invitations you get dramatically. The first thing you have to tackle when you are a projector type or an orchestrator type is you have to heal your self-worth. It's true for everybody, but it's exceptionally true for the projector types. You have to have a deep sense of your right place in the world, your right space to fill, your gifts, your strengths, and you have to really stand in that worthiness enough to do two things. One, don't ever accept a crappy invitation just because you're like, "Oh, somebody saw me." To wait for the right invitations, not any invitation. And number two, you have to value yourself enough to say, "I don't have the energy for this right now. I need to take a pause and restock, replenish, generate for myself the energy necessary for me to be healthy so that I can engage fully in whatever invitation comes my way." If a projector doesn't have the energy, or they haven't healed the self-worth piece, it can feel like, when I tell them you need to wait, it feels to them like nothing's happening. And then of course they panic. And that's when the money piece oftentimes comes in, or the energy piece comes in. And it's hard to convey that sometimes that pause where it seems like nothing is happening is really sort of a loving gift from the cosmos that says, "Honey, you're tired and you're really not valuing yourself enough. So we're going to give you a little time out here so that you can sit here and take care of yourself and nurture yourself and heal yourself so you can get back out here and offer to the world that beautiful thing that only you can give the world." That's essential for the projector experience and for the projectors to stay healthy. And of course, as we talked about, they're not here to work in the traditional way that we think of as working. They're here to come in, manage and guide, get out and rest. Come in, manage and guide, organize, orchestrate, get out and rest. So they're about 20% of the population. Our last type is called the reflector. Reflectors are less than 1% of the population. They're pretty rare. The reflector has the role in life of really serving as a karmic mirror for the rest of them. I call them the barometers of the evolution of humanity. Much like a projector, a reflector can totally see the potential of everyone they're with. They tend to fall in love with people's potentials. They see the potential of humanity. And when they look out at the world and they see the potential of humanity, and then they see what humanity is doing, or they fall in love with people who they sense and get, "Oh, this person has so much potential," and then they see what that person is doing, they often can experience disappointment because that gap can be pretty big. The reflector is really here to value themselves enough, same theme as an orchestrator, to put themselves in a community that feels good and right and aligned. When the reflector is in a good community, a happy community, an aligned community, a healthy community, they themselves are going to feel healthy and happy and aligned because they're barometers of the community. The challenge for the reflector is making peace with time and timing, because the reflector really, because they are so empathic and so aware of all the energy around them, they need a lot of time to make good and solid choices. They really have to wait out 1 or 2 full lunar cycles, 28 days or more, to make good, solid choices, because they have to sort through all the energy they're experiencing to really find or connect with their own energy within the soup that they're swimming in energetically. But once they do, then they make good and strong decisions. And of course, once they value themselves enough to place themselves in relationships where people are fulfilling their potential and working towards that consciously, and in communities where people really are happy and grounded and doing well, then they do better. So that's a gross summary of the 5 types.
Wow, that's just amazing. Thinking back of when my own 3 children were young, wouldn't it have been nice to have a report of their personality so that you could help them sort through things and help them feed what they're good at?
Totally.
Yeah, and like everybody who has little kids, should get a chart of their child.
I have one son who is, I've always said to my other kids, I don't, I'm here, I feed you, I clothe you, it's up to you. You're gonna be fine. I'm just providing the structure. But my youngest son, I'm like, if you make it to adulthood, I'm taking full credit for it, because it's gonna be my fault you lived. But he was just a very challenging child. He was, he didn't speak till he was 4. People kept wanting to put him on the autism spectrum. I'm like, this kid's not autistic. He just doesn't want to talk to you, and he just really, he's stubborn by design, or I would say he's literally rooted in his own inner awareness of when the timing is right for him. And man, if I had not known his chart, I probably would have medicated him. I probably would have said, okay, this kid has a problem. But I really sensed sort of intuitively, and also from the chart, that he just was different. And I'm so grateful that I had that awareness, because I think it really allowed him to drop into a space where he was willing to explore and learn how to really bring out the best of his different. It's interesting to me because he's so really unique by design, and he joined the Army, which I just never would have imagined it. But he really thrives in the Army as somebody who's really working towards leadership in an institution that's very much about you have to be in the box. So it's kind of funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it might just be his, the section of his life too.
Yeah. Definitely.
He might be one of those, when he gets into his 40s, it's a complete career path, but
I'm pretty sure. So he's still young.
Right. Looking at myself, starting as a programmer and systems analyst, and then going to med school in my 50s. So,
right.
Life is not over until it's over. So
right. Exactly.
Lots of opportunities to change. So I know in the beginning, in the introduction, there is another system that you talk about, the quantum alignment system.
Mm-hmm.
How is that different from the quantum human design?
So quantum human design is the language that we use, and I use that as a coaching tool. Quantum alignment system is sort of the modality that I developed that integrates quantum human design, the emotional freedom techniques, which is an energy psychology techniques, subtle body therapies. We use custom blended flower essences that we made according to the vibrational frequency of the archetypes in the chart, and of course, concrete coaching. And we blended that all together as a tool to really help people decondition, because it's tricky sometimes to get through the conditioning. You have to oftentimes really go deep into, for example, let's talk about the projectors who we just talked about, where self-esteem is so essential. You can't just say, look, you need to value yourself. Sometimes you have to get in there and figure out where's the patterning in the brain that's causing someone to stay in this consistent cycle of playing smaller than maybe what they feel safe playing, or hiding out because that's a pattern that they learned was a way to protect themselves or to keep themselves safe in some way. So this integrated process really allows us to get in and kind of work with some of the inner patterns and give people a very practical but really powerful way to get behind those patterns and bring them out of the conditioning into a pathway that allows them to really step into the fulfillment of the potential of their chart without some of the. I know Gabor Mate, the doctor, talks a lot about micro traumas, and I define micro traumas as any event that's caused you to lose connection with your value or your right place in the world. And I think when we look at that in the context of how people behave or even how that impacts the body. That if people have consistently gotten a message, even if it wasn't terribly quote unquote abusive, if somehow they learned through the course of growing up that it wasn't okay for them to be who they are and how they are, the body internalizes that, and the body eventually experiences that as trauma. And it puts people, I think, in a state of chronic hypervigilance, of being aware of where am I being told that it's not okay for me to be who I am. I have to shut down. I have to hide. I have to deny my authentic self-expression. And this system really allows people to drop into a space of looking at those conditioned patterns and really clearing them out of the brain and the body on a cognitive and on an energetic level as well.
Wow, that sounds just fascinating, because when just even thinking of children and how beneficial that could be for a child to learn about how to align. Because you also mentioned that you work with flower essences that are then made for that person.
Yeah, we have people who actually will custom blend flower essences specific for you. And then we have people who have created flower essences for specific elements in the chart. So for example, if you're struggling with self-worth, that's oftentimes associated with an energy center. And there are 9 energy centers in the chart. They correlate to the 7 chakras from the Hindu chakra system. If you're struggling with self-worth, it means you're oftentimes struggling with the theme of what we call the will center. And so we have an essence that is a will center essence that is, the way it works is kind of like this. You clear the mind through the tapping and the EFT, and you clear the energy field. And of course you do the cognitive reframing. But as you know, when we go back out into the world, especially because the brain is so beautifully designed to slip into patterns, when we walk through a room, we're not sitting there going left, right. At least most of us aren't. Sometimes I still am, but left, right. We have that neurobiology that's in place that makes those things happen sort of rotely. And the way we feel about ourselves and the way we respond to micro trauma also happens really rotely. And so as you leave somebody, if you leave my office and you go back out into the world and somebody says something to you that immediately triggers that trauma, it's easy to slide back into that pattern, even though we just cleared it. Over time and with repetition, it gets easier and easier to clear it. But we use the subtle body essences to sort of act as an energetic poultice. It keeps the vibrational frequency of the change that we just made in place so that you're a little bit more immune to going back out into the world and being re-triggered into an old neural pathway. So,
wow, it's fascinating. You can think of so many people that would benefit from this that are listening, especially using flower essences and things like that, so easy to use with young children.
Yeah.
I know you have different websites. One is the Quantum Alignment System and one is Quantum Human Design. Where do people start now? Like all the listeners that are thinking, oh my gosh, I want to do this and I want to do this for my child. Where do they start? What website do they go to? And do they start with a chart or a reading with you, or how does this work?
Totally. So I always say, start with quantumalignmentsystem.com. When you go to that site, the very first thing at the top, you have an opportunity to click on a link. You can get your free chart. So you have to know your birthday, birth time, and birthplace. Or if you're running your kids' charts, their birthday, birth time, and birthplace. That chart's going, you'll get a chart that's generated. It comes with a whole bunch of reports and little videos that can help you interpret it on the start. The website itself also has a ton of information on it. We have a monthly magazine, we've got weekly blogs, we've got all kinds of articles about healing and parts of the chart. And it has on there, and I think this is the most important piece on there, it has a whole listing of our trained practitioners, because as much as you can sit there and sort through a chart yourself, and you can, there really isn't anything, I think, more beautiful than giving yourself the gift of sitting down with a practitioner and having somebody that really knows how to synthesize the whole story of the chart, sit down with you and go through it. Because the quantity of data that's in there that's going to support you and give you some powerful cognitive reframes, it's going to help you really learn who you're not, who you are, who you can grow into becoming, how your energy works. I've done over 10,000 readings in my life. I've just had the privilege so many times of sitting with people and hearing them say, oh my gosh, all this stuff that I thought was special about me that everybody said was like, no, it's actually true. I'm actually here for a reason. I have gifts, I have strengths, and people feel seen. They feel so seen. I mean, to this, I had an experience one time. I did a reading for a 74-year-old woman who, she had a really interesting and somewhat challenging chart and had just a really long story in her life of not being seen and not feeling heard. And when I finished the reading, she was just crying. And she said, I feel seen for the first time in my life. I feel like somebody has really seen me. And I think, oh my God, please, people, let's not wait till we're 74 to be seen. Do yourself a favor and let yourself be seen, whether you do it by just looking at your chart. I always tell people, I don't care if you do it by doing pranayama breathing on your head on a beach. It doesn't matter to me, but let yourself be seen, because each and every one of us is a unique cosmic event. And we, each and every one of us, have a vital and irreplaceable role to play in the world. And if we don't give ourselves the gift of stepping into that and fulfilling that, not only do we miss out personally, it actually affects the whole world. The world needs us to get into our right place right now, more than any other time, I think, on this planet. And we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to the world. I think we owe it to whatever mission we signed up for when we said we were going to come here, voluntarily or not, that, we deserve to be seen. You deserve to be seen.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I'm on the same mission myself, trying to help people step into their life path and doing the things that they came here to do. The world is in such great need of having us all step into our life path. And this is an excellent way of learning about that. If you're not sure why you're here and you feel like you're just walking through life and wondering what your purpose is, this is a great way of learning about your mission and why you're really here. Mm-hmm. So the quantumalignmentsystem.com is where they should start. And yes, the quantumhumandesign.com website, is that for some
that'll take you a good place too. I mean, that's where you can get some more information about our membership community, and you can get your free chart there too. So if you follow the little post that says free chart, you can get your chart there as well. So either one is fine, but Quantum Alignment System definitely has a lot more information on it.
Okay. And you're also on Instagram, Facebook. Yep. How do the people find you there?
Karen Curry Parker. That's the easiest thing to remember. So that's my Instagram name. That's my Facebook name. I don't know if I'm on Twitter. I don't do Twitter. I talk too much. But
you're on Pinterest.
And Pinterest, yes.
YouTube.
Oh yeah, we have a big YouTube channel. Sorry, thank you for reminding me. Yeah. We have a huge YouTube channel. There's tons and tons of videos there. Lots of good information about human design. Again, get your chart. You can go there and start figuring stuff out too. So.
Wow, just amazing. So a lot of places to go check out, and I will put as many links as fit into the podcast notes. I know the Apple iTunes site is very restricted. You always have to shorten everybody's bio on Apple, but on the regular podcast notes, usually everything fits. So quantumalignmentsystem.com and quantumhumandesign.com. And you can find Karen at Instagram and Facebook and YouTube under Karen Curry Parker.
Yes.
And I want to thank you so much, Karen, for being a guest on the podcast today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Lata. I appreciate it.
I hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Dr. Lottie, Science with Soul. To stay up to date on future episodes and to help us reach a larger audience, remember to subscribe, review, and share this podcast. If you're a person who understands the interconnectedness of mind, body, and soul, and would like to take one of my courses or work with me to create a path of healing your own life, please visit divinespiritualessence.com or drlottie.com. My book, Med School After Menopause, The Journey of My Soul, an inspirational story about transformation, healing, and spirituality, is available online at Amazon as well as other online platforms worldwide.